Do you want to know the truth?
In 2003, a 22-year-old Parisian with no real film credits to her name took off her clothes for Bernardo Bertolucci.
It's part of the game.
Her mother begged her not to do it, not because the part was small, because the last time Bertolucci asked this of a very young actress, in 1972, the experience damaged her for life, and everyone in French cinema remembered her name.
And this is Bernardo, so you, okay, he's God. Okay, Mr. Bernardo.
What happened instead turned Eva Green into the most deliberate beauty of her generation.
It's fun to play evil, you know.
And almost nobody noticed the trick she was pulling the whole time.
I'm not good at blah blah and ha 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 plastic smiles and all that.
Because the darkest thing about Eva Green was never real. If you only have 30 seconds, here's the bottom line of this video. Eva Green got famous by doing the one thing her agent and her parents begged her not to do. An NC-17 art film about a pair of enmeshed French twins and the American boy who wanders into their apartment, directed by the man with the most dangerous reputation in European cinema.
It's about the magic meeting of three kids. Romantic, dramatic, sensuous.
And her secret is better than the scandal. The gothic siren you think you know, the raven hair, the porcelain skin, the stare that could curdle milk, is nothing but a costume she designed for herself at just 14. She is a natural dark blonde. The vamp is an invention, and the inventor is a shy woman.
I was kind of a geek.
Who collects insects, meditates, and would genuinely rather be home. But if you'd like a bit more of an explanation, follow me. Welcome. I'm Kira, and this is your beauty blueprint. I've spent a whole week researching, watching, and editing all things Eva Green to bring to you her very essence and share the best of my findings. And this one, my dears, got strange in the best way. I found a birthday that doesn't match its own birth certificate. I found $1 million court case built on leaked text messages, in which a movie star tried to convince a judge that calling people weak and stupid was simply her Frenchness. I found a Japanese sake, a preserved skull collection, and a Bond girl who compared being a Bond girl to being a bowl of soup. And stick around, because by the end of this video, I'll serve us a quick, very practical breakdown of what we can actually steal from Eva Green's style universe, down to the exact eye product her own makeup artist uses on her, so you can build your version of the look without ever once cosplaying as her. One quick thing before we sink in, because I couldn't help myself, I designed an Eva Green inspired t-shirt just for us. I just really loved the Dreamers and felt quite inspired. It took a while to finish because of my damn perfectionism, but I am so happy with how it turned out. They are super soft and ship super fast to and fro all over our little globe, and nothing makes me happier than to hear from you when you get one. I've now designed quite a few t-shirts featuring a whole lineup of the icons we've covered on both channels, and they're waiting for you in my store. Go adopt one. They get lonely. Now, pour yourself something appropriate because Eva demands atmosphere. The house recommendation is a glass of French red, and not just because her twin sister runs a wine business in Normandy, which she does, and will get there. It's because when The Dreamers came out, The Guardian's critic Peter Bradshaw described watching it as being like drinking a bottle of good red wine all at once on an empty stomach. Not good for you, but wickedly pleasurable all the same. That is also, frankly, a description of this entire episode. If wine isn't your thing, a Vesper martini works. And by the midpoint you'll know why it exists. Or you can always go full Eva with black coffee and a square of dark chocolate. Let's figure out who Eva Green actually is, and how a girl too shy to speak in class became the woman Bertolucci called so beautiful it's indecent. Here's a tiny backstory. Eva Gaëlle Green was born in Paris in the summer of 1980, and I cannot even give you the date with a straight face, which is a first for this channel. Every encyclopedia, every profile, every birthday post says July 6, and adds the charming detail that she arrived 2 minutes before her fraternal twin sister, Joy. But her birth certificate, the actual document, quoted in the Astro Databank record with its highest possible reliability rating, says July 5 at 10:35 in the morning. The most authoritative source we have disagrees with literally everyone, including, apparently, the family. Since we have a birth certificate time, we can talk astrology with more confidence than usual. With one caveat I'll flag in a second. Eva is a Cancer sun. The crab, home-loving, tender underneath, armored on the outside and fiercely, almost pathologically private. Hold that thought, because her entire relationship with fame is going to read like a Cancer sun screaming into a pillow. Her moon, the emotional engine, is in Aries. Blunt, combustible, zero patience, speaks first and apologizes never. So the inner weather is a permanent fight between a creature that wants to hide in its shell and a creature that wants to flip the table. Her own mother reportedly described her with the word schizophrenic, affectionately, and Eva has said she can be confident about some things and hopeless the moment she has to prove herself. Sun in Cancer, Moon in Aries, the shell and the match. As for her rising sign, the sources disagree. One chart shows Virgo rising, another Leo. Well, the household she landed in explains a lot too. Her mother is Marlène Jobert, a real French star of the 60s and 70s who worked with Godard and Chabrol, then reinvented herself as the author and narrator of over 50 children's books, and eventually received an honorary César. Her father, Walter Green, was a dentist, which sounds anticlimactic until you learn he appeared in Robert Bresson's Au Hasard Balthazar, because in this family even the dentist has an art film credit. Her great-grandfather was the composer Paul Flem. Her surname is Swedish, by the way, properly pronounced closer to grain, so we have all been saying her name wrong for 20 years, and she never bothered to correct us. Through her mother, whose family was of Sephardic Jewish heritage from French Algeria, Eva is Jewish, though she wasn't raised religious. And her own formula is lovelier than any label. I feel like a citizen of the world. Life and cinema don't have borders. And the child herself, painfully, clinically shy. So shy her mother sent her to a therapist and enrolled her in acting lessons not to launch a career, but simply to make her at least somewhat sociable. So yeah, the most intimidating screen presence of her generation started acting as a treatment for timidity. At 7, a trip to the Louvre left her obsessed with Egyptology, which feels correct, a solitary little girl falling in love with sarcophagi. At 14, 2 things happened, and I'd argue they were the same event wearing different outfits. She saw Isabelle Adjani in The Story of Adele H and decided, watching that portrait of consuming obsession, that acting was it for her. By the way, have you seen my video on Isabelle Adjani yet? Well, little Eva took her natural dark blonde hair and dyed it. First blue, then black. Blue-black, straight into the void. At 14. She later said she was in awe of a friend of her mother's who had dark hair, and that when she came home with it done, she felt more like herself. It's weird, but in a good way. By the way, we saw the exact same thing play out for Dita Von Teese, so make sure to watch that one too. So yes, the whole Eva Green mythology, the entire dark siren blueprint, begins with a teenager correcting nature. She has said she'd never change it back unless a film required it. The gothic bombshell of French cinema is a self-portrait, painted over a blonde. The road from there was not smooth, which I find kind of comforting. She left the French school system at 17 for the American School of Paris, then spent 3 years at the St. Paul Drama School, plus a 10-week stint at the Webber Douglas Academy in London. Back in Paris, she did stage plays, and her description of one of them is the single most humanizing celebrity quote I've read all summer. She didn't get along with the director. She was on stage almost the entire show, and her only break was 3 minutes in which she was allowed to go off and pee in a bucket. Her words, "For those 3 minutes, I was sitting on a bucket, peeing and crying at the same time. It was a nightmare." Remember that image. Because within a year of the bucket, Bernardo Bertolucci is going to call this woman indecently beautiful in front of the whole entire world. And that brings us to the film this whole episode orbits, and to a question I want us to hold on to. What exactly did Louis Garrel say when he walked into her trailer on day 1? Because it is one of the great icebreakers in film history, and it's coming. If you're enjoying this, by the way, now is the perfect moment to quickly like and subscribe. It genuinely decides whether this video finds the women it was made for. And it's so easy to do, I promise. So, The Dreamers, 2003. Bernardo Bertolucci, adapting Gilbert Adair's novel, The Holy Innocents, itself haunted by Cocteau's Les Enfants Terribles. Paris, spring of 1968. The city about to catch fire. The Cinematheque has been shuttered, the students are in the streets, and a polite American film nerd named Matthew, played by Michael Pitt, gets adopted by a pair of French twins, Theo and Isabelle, who live in a vast, crumbling apartment and play a game where you must act out a scene from a classic film or pay a forfeit. The forfeits are where the trouble lives, of course. The twins share a bed, nude, with an intimacy that hums well past sibling. One forfeit requires Theo to masturbate in front of the others, to a photograph of Marlène Dietrich. Another ends with Isabelle losing her virginity to Matthew on the kitchen floor, blood and all, while her brother fries eggs a few feet away. Bertolucci actually cut the novel's love scenes between the two boys, calling them just too much, which tells you where the line was in 2003, and it was in a very specific place. So this was Eva Green's screen debut. She was 22, and she had exactly one blink and miss it bit part before it. Everyone told her no, her agent told her no, her parents begged, and their fear had a name, Maria Schneider, the 19-year-old actress from Bertolucci's Last Tango in Paris, who came out of that 1972 production traumatized and spent decades saying so. Eva has been direct about it. My mom was worried about the reputation, about what happened with Maria Schneider in Last Tango, that she was completely destroyed after the experience. Bertolucci once quipped that Eva probably didn't even know who Schneider was, and Eva shut that down flatly. No, that's not true, of course we talked about her. Adding, carefully, that Bertolucci was 30 years older by The Dreamers and might have been a different man, and that Schneider had a very harsh experience, and that was her experience. No dismissal, no denial, And no pretending her own good experience erases someone else's bad one, because her experience, by every account she's ever given, was the opposite of a horror story. She wanted this film with her whole chest. Even though there were lots of nude scenes, I was desperate to do it. I was like, I don't care, she said. She called it just a really beautiful love story between 3 people. She prepared for 2 months with an English tutor and watched every classic film referenced in the script, which is the most dutiful possible way to prepare for the least dutiful possible movie. Casting footnote, her original screen partner was Jake Gyllenhaal, who auditioned with her in London and then pulled out. Her reaction, oh no, I really liked him. Then Michael Pitt came aboard, and she said he was extremely interesting and actually perfect, and that it might have been a completely different film with another actor. So how does a terrified 22-year-old shoot scenes like that? Apparently with cognac, a conductor, and a trailer negotiation for the ages. On set, some people were giving us cognac to relax, she remembered. Of Bertolucci, when we were making love on the floor, he was directing us like an orchestra conductor. You just don't think, you do it. His camera operator recalled the man shouting, "Run the camera over those bodies, don't be afraid." She nicknamed Bertolucci her little Buddha, very wise and mischievous, and called the shoot one of the best experiences she ever had, and the trailer story, as promised. Louis Garrel, playing her twin, walked into her trailer early on and proposed a trade. He would show her his if she showed him hers. So she did, and he did. His review, according to Eva, they look great. Somewhere, an intimacy coordinator just woke up in a cold sweat. She never talks about the kitchen floor scene casually though. Years later, she said, I don't know if I'd be capable to do this again. It was so scary and surreal. I'm not very confident in my body, so it's like, here you go, I'll show my body. I don't understand myself. I don't get it. There's the Cancer Aries split, alive and on the record. The shy crab watching baffled as the Aries moon strides out of the robe. Her fullest defense came out in 2003. I trusted Bernardo completely. He is a master of eroticism. I felt like I was sleepwalking. It is another form of expression, another language. And the thesis statement, The Dreamers, is not about sex, it's about love. America, of course, lost its mind. Fox Searchlight released it NC-17 uncut, the first time a major studio arm had touched that rating in over 6 years, with the studio president invoking Midnight Cowboy and Last Tango as ancestors. Bertolucci's contribution to the discourse was one sentence: after all, an orgasm is better than a bomb. Eva's was blunter, telling the press at the time she couldn't understand the American fixation, that you can't show naked people on screen while a baby being killed can be shown, and that Americans were far too puritanical, far too uptight. 22 years old, first movie, cheerfully insulting the entire market she was about to conquer. The critics split along exactly the lines you'd expect. A.O. Scott in the New York Times found it disarmingly sweet and completely enchanting. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars and called it extraordinarily beautiful. Variety said Eva delivered a striking debut, a mix of fragility and sensuality. The Times of London sniffed that it combined the grubbily voyeuristic elements of Last Tango and stealing beauty rather than their strengths. At its widest, the uncut version played 116 American theaters and grossed about $2.5 million. And in France, by Eva's own account, it died very quickly at the box office. And then time did what time does with Bertolucci. It's really through the years that people have liked it, she says. I love it. It was my first movie. Very pure fun, she says. The Scandal became a classic while nobody was watching. Eva herself has never once said she regrets it, and she also never watches it. I prefer to keep the memories. In every movie, actually. I prefer the experience rather than watching it. What the Dreamers actually did was hand her a persona and a problem in the same envelope. The persona, the dangerous French beauty, sensual, unknowable, slightly cruel around the eyes. The problem, every casting director on Earth now wanted only that. Watch how she plays it. Ridley Scott casts her as Princess Sibylla in Kingdom of Heaven with a week's notice, then trims her best material, which stung. But the set gives her Martin Sokus, the New Zealand actor who becomes her longest publicly known relationship, roughly 2005 to 2009. Then comes the phone call that would define her decade, and she said no to it. Casino Royale, Vesper, Lynd. Her actual first reaction, ooh, a Bond girl? What kind of prissy girl is that? She told her agent to say she was busy filming in France. Producer Barbara Broccoli simply refused to accept it and had her people ring the agent every week. And Martin Campbell came back around after seeing her in the longer cut of Kingdom of Heaven. Her thick French accent nearly sank the screen test. And it was Daniel Craig who dug in and said, we've got to have her. The result, the most devastating woman in the modern Bond canon, a BAFTA Rising Star Award, and a cocktail, the Vesper Martini, named for her character. Her reward in her own telling was a press tour that made her feel like a menu item. I got very angry when people kept asking me, what's it feel like to be a Bond girl? As if I was soup. From there, the filmography reads like a woman strategically collecting witches, queens, and monsters. A witch queen in The Golden Compass, Morgan in Camelot, which she described as a mixture of Joan of Arc and Lady Macbeth. Angelique in Dark Shadows, Artemisia in 300, Rise of an Empire, which moved one critic to write, Behold the magnificent Eva Green, and Tremble. Ava Lord in Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, whose poster was banned by the MPAA for the curve of an underbreast and a shadow of nipple through sheer fabric, prompting Ava's magnificently unbothered response. It was a lot of noise for nothing, and she found the image really sexy, actually, kind of beautiful. And then the crown jewel, Vanessa Ives in Penny Dreadful. 3 seasons of possession, prayer and shaking hands that earned her a Golden Globe nomination and remains the finest sustained performance in modern Gothic television. Later came Miss Peregrine, then Dumbo, then Proxima. She sat on the Cannes jury in 2024 and announced in late 2025 she's joining Wednesday as Aunt Ophelia Frump, Burton collaboration number 4. And about Burton, after his split from Helena Bonham Carter, whom I have already covered, of course, please watch that, I insist. The tabloids decided Tim Burton and Eva Green were together, largely because they kept being photographed together looking like matching Edward Gorey drawings. Eva denied it, in print and on her own Instagram. Tim Burton and I are not together, unlike what the rumors say. What Burton has said about her, though, is worth keeping. Eva was not instantly knowable. There was something private and mysterious about her. People think she's dark, but she's more interesting than that. On the darker side of the industry, she was among the more than 80 women who came forward about Harvey Weinstein in 2017, describing pushing away an unwanted advance, and her mother later said Weinstein had threatened to destroy Eva's career. In 2019, a climate-themed sci-fi film called Patriot, which Eva was to star in and executive produce, collapsed before cameras rolled. She sued the production company for her $1 million pay-or-play fee. They counter-sued, accusing her of sabotaging her own film. And then discovery happened, and her private WhatsApp messages were read aloud in the High Court in London. In them, Eva had called one producer evil, the devil, a devious sociopath, pure vomit, and a real mad dictator. She'd called the production manager a moron and worse. She'd called prospective crew members shitty peasants from Hampshire. She'd called the project a B-shitty movie. She had at one point jokingly called herself Cruella on the witness stand. Asked to explain describing 2 filmmakers as weak and stupid, she offered the defense of the century. It's my Frenchness coming out sometimes. Sometimes you say things you don't actually mean. Of course they are not weak and stupid. And here's what makes this story a Rorschach test instead of a takedown. She won. Completely. The judge awarded her the full fee and dismissed the counterclaim, writing that her vicious texts were born from a genuine feeling of concern that any film made under that producer's control would be of very low quality, and adding, of the producer himself, that having heard him give evidence, I can see how it might be possible to take an instant dislike to him. If you're still with me, and of course you are, this is where I remind you that channel members get the members-only podcast episodes. Members also get early access to videos and those little badges by their names and emojis to use in the comments. And to those already joined, just know that you mean the world to me. Now, the part I've been saving. What is Eva Green, actually? A femme fatale isn't a bad woman. She's an ancient one. Nature's dangerous face wearing the mask of a persona. A woman whose surface is pure Apollonian control, the unmoving black hair, the deliberate pallor, the composed symmetrical face, worn precisely to advertise the Dionysian underneath, the roles full of possession, appetite, blood on the kitchen floor. The twist is that with Eva, the thonic darkness is the constructed layer. Nature made a shy blonde. The abyss is pure production. She built the fatale mask by hand at 14, and then spent 20 years amused that people believe it. I hope I'm not being reduced to the dark femme fatale, she said, because it's almost a cartoon, one-dimensional, temptress kind of character. I like characters who have strong facades and then have secrets. They have cracks. Or, more tardily, dark? What does that mean, dark? I like to call my type more complex. Meanwhile, at home, the alleged sorceress collects taxidermy, preserved skulls and insects, meditates, loves astrology, and describes herself as quiet, boring even in real life, nothing like the mad characters she plays. People think I'm so strong, she said, but I'm very shy. Hollywood never quite got her, and the feeling is mutual. In Los Angeles, she feels like the ugly duckling, like she's from Venus or something. And her retirement plan, she's fond of saying, is maybe she'll end up living in Norway, making cakes. She doesn't believe in God, but believes in something more, and her relationship to the work itself is the least ironic thing about her. It's not a job, it's almost like a faith or a religion. Every time, I give a bit of my soul. So here's my answer to what she represents, and I think it's why she matters to this channel more than almost anyone we've covered. Eva Green is proof that a persona can be entirely invented and entirely true at the same time. She didn't discover her essence, she authored it at 14 with a box dye. and the authored self turned out to be the honest one. That is a blueprint in the most literal sense, which brings us, as promised, to the practical part. How do you actually build an Eva, or better, your version of one? Start with a philosophy, because hers is really useful. Off duty, she keeps a bare face that looks really healthy and dewy, and saves the drama for when it means something. The Eva Green look is not a daily uniform, it's a deliberate act, and that's why it lands. Rule 1. Pick a single feature and give it everything. Her longtime makeup artist, Lisa Eldridge, who's done her for films and covers, put it simply, Eva naturally has a great look, with beautiful pale skin and piercing blue eyes, so I focused the intensity of the makeup on her eyes, and kept her skin and lips very natural. Rule 2. Embrace what you were told to fix. Eva refuses to tan. The porcelain is the canvas that makes near black eyeshadow read as elegant instead of costume. Whatever your equivalent is, the paleness, the strong brow, the gap, the nose, that's your version. The feature you turn up instead of down. Now, the mechanics. If you want one product, the documented one, the shade Eldridge has actually used on Eva's eyes is Max Pro Longwear Paint Pot in Blackground. A blackened base that's still in production and does 90% of this look on its own. Finish with a dark red or berry lip applied with a brush, blotted, reapplied, and a whisper of highlighter on the cupid's bow. For scent lore, she was the face of Dior's Midnight Poison in a sapphire bottle, with a commercial directed by Wong Kar-wai. And for style, her own rules are just perfect. I like a high neck, and I like naked backs. Red carpets are about being a bit theatrical. You have to be brave, cover the front, reveal the back. One big glamorous decision, fully brought up, beats 10 timid ones. So what's Eva's advice to us at the end of all this? She never gives advice, of course. She's far too private for that, so let's take it from the evidence instead. Protect the private self that funds the public one, and treat the work, whatever your work is, the way she treats hers. Like a faith, where every time you give a bit of your soul. And maybe keep one Norway, one imaginary bakery of an exit plan, in your back pocket, because knowing the door exists is what lets you stay so daringly in the room. Here's the reflection I'll leave you with. We talk about authenticity as if it means being found, as if the real you is buried somewhere, waiting for excavation. Eva Green suggests the opposite, that the truest self might be the one you build, with intention and against everyone's advice. So tell me in the comments, what's your blueprint? The one deliberate thing you did, or want to do, that made you feel more like yourself, even if it made no sense to anyone else? I read everything, and the comments are the best part of my week. I've queued up the next chapter for you here. I'll see you soon. Love, Kira. Now go create your own blueprint.
Did you have a good time?